Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Radha Madhava Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopidana Vallabha Girivardhari Jaya Gopidana Vallabha Girivardhari Yashodanandana Brajadarandana Yashodanandana Brajadarandana Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopidana Vallabha Girivardhari Jaya Gopidana Vallabha Girivardhari Yashodanandana Brajadarandana Yashodanandana Brajadarandana Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Hare Krishna Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Jaya Radha Madhava Radha Madhava Radhe Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Prabhupada. Prabhupada, 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 Prabhupada. Gaura Pimanandi. Jayam Vishupad Paramahamsa. Privrajagacharya Stotra Satta Sri Simadhi Divine Grace Chiraboy Charanarvind Bhakti Raghava Swami Sri Prabhupada ki Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki Iskon Bibiti Founder Acharyas Divine Grace Sri Prabhupada ki Namacharya Sri Haridas Thakur ki Samavata Bhakti Vrinda ki Haridam Sankirtan ki, Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki, Dainita Gaura Primanande. All glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to Sri Guru, to Sri Gauranga, all glories to Sri Prabhupada ki. Om Agyanatimirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Taksuranmiritam Jena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Jena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swaparantikam Vandeham Sri Guru Sri Juta Padakamalam Sri Gurun Vaisnavam Sri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatan Vitam Tvam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savarutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Sri Vishakan Vitamscha Hai Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Suti Devi Pranamami Hare Priye Vanchakalpa Tarubhyasya Kripa Sindhu Vyaivacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narotamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudirayat. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is our very means of conquest, let us first offer respectful obeisances unto Narayana, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, unto Narayana Rishi, the Supremost Human Being, unto Mother Saraswati, the Goddess of Learning, and unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author. Nasta Prayesha Badreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Tamashloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naistiki. By regularly hearing the Srimad Bhagavatam and by rendering a service unto the pure devotee, All that is troublesome within the heart becomes destroyed practically to nil, and loving devotional service unto the Supreme Lord, who is praised with transcendental songs, it becomes established as an irrevocable fact. Idam Bhagavatam Nama Puranam Brahma Samhitam Uttama Shloka Charitam Chakara Bhagavan Rishi Nishreyasaya Lokasya Dhanyam Swasya Yaram Maha. This Srimad Bhagavatam, known as the Grantaraj, the king of all Vedic literatures, is the literary incarnation of God. It is compiled by the incarnation of God as Srila Vyasadeva. It is meant for the ultimate good of all people. It is all successful, all blissful, and all perfect. Sri Krishna Chaitanya,
Sri Krishna Chaitanya,
Prabhu Nityananda,
Prabhu Nityananda,
Sri Advaita Gadadhar,
Sri Advaita Gadadhar,
Sri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda,
Sri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda,
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna,
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna,
Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare,
Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare,
Hare Rama, Hare Rama,
Hare Rama, Hare Rama,
Rama Rama, Hare Hare,
Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya,
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 Om Sarabhyay Namaha,
Om Surabhyay Namaha,
Om Sarabhyay Namaha,
Om Surabhyay Namaha,
Om Sarabhyay Namaha,
Om Surabhyay Namaha,
Mukham karoti vachalam pangum langayate girim Yat kripatamaham bande Sri Gurum Dinatharanam, Yat kripatamaham bande Sri Gurum Dinatharanam. Hare Krishna. Welcome to our morning Bhagavatam class. We are continuing from canto number 4, chapter 27, entitled Attack by Chandavega on the city of Puranjana. Today's text 29. Tvam avyakta gatir bhungshva lokam karma vinirmitam ya hi me pritana yukta praja nasam praneshyasi tvam avyakta gatir bhungshva lokam karma vinirmitam yahi me pritana yukta praja nasam praneshyasi tvam avyakta gatir bhungshva lokam karma vinirmitam yahi me pritana yukta prajanasam pranishyasi tvam avyakta gatir bhungsva lokam karma vinirmitam yahi me pritana yukta Prajanasam pranishyasi.
Tvam avyakta gatir bhungshva.
Tvam avyakta gatir bhungsva.
Lokam karma vinirmitam.
Lokam karma vinirmitam.
Yahi me pritana yukta.
Yahi me pritana yukta.
Prajanasham pranishyasi.
Prajanasam pranishyasi.
Tvam avyakta gatir bhungshva.
Tvam avyakta gatir bhungsva.
Lokam karma vinirmitam.
Lokam karma vinirmitam.
Yahi me pritana yukta.
Yahi me pritana yukta.
Rajanasham pranishyasi.
Prajanasham pranishyasi.
Tvam avyakta gatir bhungshva.
Tvam avyakta gatir bhungshva.
Lokam karma vinirmitam.
Lokam karma vinirmitam.
Yahi me pritana yukta.
Yahi me pritana yukta.
Prajanasham pranishyasi.
Prajanasham pranishyasi.
Ladies.
Tvam avyakta gatir bhungshva.
Tvam avyakta gatir bhungsva.
Lokam karma vinirmitam.
Lokam karma vinirmitam.
Yahi me pritana yukta.
Yahi me pritana yukta.
Prajanasham pranishyasi.
Prajanasam pranishyasi. Tvam, you. Avyakta gatihi,
Avyakta gatihi.
whose movement is imperceptible.
Whose movement is imperceptible.
Bhungsva,
Bhungshva.
enjoy.
Enjoy.
Lokam,
Lokam.
this world.
This world.
Karma vinirmitam,
Karma vinirmitam.
manufactured by fruitive activities.
Manufactured by fruitive activities.
Ya,
Yeah.
one who.
One who.
He certainly may my pritana soldiers yukta helped by prajanasam annihilation of the living entities. Pranishyasi, you shall carry out without any hindrance. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhakti Raghava Swami, Srila Prabhupada ki. This world is a product of fruitive activities. Therefore, you may imperceptibly attack people in general. Helped by my soldiers, you can kill them without opposition. I kindly repeat after me. This world is a product of fruitive activities. Therefore, you may imperceptibly attack people in general. Helped by my soldiers, you can kill them without opposition. Purport. The word karma vinirmitam means manufactured by fruitive activities. This entire material world, especially in these days, is a result of fruitive activities. Everyone is fully engaged in decorating the world with highways, motor cars, electricity, skyscrapers, industries, businesses, etc. All this appears very nice for those who are simply engaged in sense gratification and who are ignorant of spiritual identity. As described in Srimad Bhagavatam 5:5-4, and you can repeat after me. Nunam pramata kurute vikarma.
Nunam pramata kurute vikama.
Yad indriya pritya aprinoti.
Yad indriya pritaya apnoti.
Nasadu manye yata atmano yamma.
Nasadu manye yatatmano yam.
Asam api kleshada asadeha.
Asam api kleshada asadeha.
Those without knowledge of the spirit soul are mad after materialistic activities. And they perform all kinds of sinful activities simply for sense gratification. According to Rishabhadev, such activities are inauspicious because they force one to accept an abominable body in the next life. Everyone can experience that although we try to keep the body in a comfortable position, it is always giving pain and is subjected to the threefold miseries. Otherwise, why are there so many hospitals, welfare boards, and insurance establishments? Actually, in this world, there is no happiness. People are simply engaged trying to counteract unhappiness. Foolish people accept unhappiness as happiness. Therefore, the king of the Yavanas decided to attack such foolish people imperceptibly by old age, disease, and ultimately death. Of course, after death, there must be birth. Therefore, Yavana Raja thought it wise to kill all the karmis through the agency of Kalakanya, and thus try to make them aware that materialistic advancement is not actually advancement. Every living entity is a spiritual being, and consequently, without spiritual advancement, the human form of life is ruined. Translation again. This world is a product of fruitive activities. Therefore, you may imperceptibly attack people in general. Helped with or helped by my soldiers, you can kill them without opposition. Quite appropriate text and purport to one of the seminars we give, entitled "Modernity is Killing Civilization." So Bhagavatam is reminding us throughout the entire Bhagavatam how this human form of life is a special gift that we all receive after a very, very long evolutionary process in this material world and in all the different species before attaining the human form of life. The main activity actually has been sense gratification, isn't it? Eating, sleeping, mating, defending. As Srila Prabhupada rightly points out, especially in our modern day society today, we have reached a certain height, certain level of so-called advanced civilization. Srila Prabhupada would explain that the more we actually involve ourselves with such so-called material advancement, the more we utilize all kinds of material gadgets as we do in modern day society, the more it becomes difficult to actually even understand or appreciate what is the importance of spiritual life. And therefore that motto often repeated by Srila Prabhupada of simple living and high thinking comes to mind. How many devotees in the class here went to this monastery yesterday? Yeah. None of the Matajis here went. The visit of that, it's a Benedictine monastery, very old. Actually, in Europe, they have many such monasteries. Of course, very less populated nowadays, but we were given a very interesting tour of the of that monastery, which brought us back to things that we could relate to as devotees who are especially meant to focus on cultivating spiritual life and minimizing our material needs or material necessities of life. That's why in the Vedic culture it is emphasized from the very early stages of life, actually even from the time we are in the womb. At one point, all of us have to spend a number of months in the womb of a mother, and we have, of course, a very wonderful example in that of Prahlad Maharaj. Prahlad Maharaj was fortunate to be in a surrounding, an atmosphere whereby from that early stage he heard transcendental sound vibration, because his mother was living in an ashram, and therefore, as described in the Bhagavatam, even before being born, we can benefit immensely if we are having a suitable environment. Vedic culture is especially aimed at creating such a material situation which more easily facilitates our development of Krishna consciousness. The opposite is taking place today in modern day so-called advanced civilization. Nate vidu swarthagatyam hi Vishnum. It is mentioned in the Bhagavatam. Nate vidu, majority of people actually simply don't know swarthagatyam, what is the what a great asset we have when we attain this human form of life. The great asset is that we are able to begin the process of actually cultivating higher knowledge. We are able to cultivate spiritual life and we can begin to understand that the more we engage ourselves in materialistic activities, the more we actually entangle ourselves, and we are forced to continue this unending suffering, as mentioned here, of repeated birth and death. There are specific qualities that one needs to develop. Those are actually listed, especially by Narada Muni, the 7th canto of the Bhagavatam, where he gives a whole description of what is meant to be ideal society. Actually, modern day scientists or modern day intellectuals, they don't believe in they don't believe in the absolute truth, and they don't believe in God, of course, and therefore not being in knowledge, they are constantly misleading the general population. So this word artha, just like we have dharma, artha, kama, moksha, which can be taken either in a material way, or they can be taken in a more spiritual way. And dharma, we can only begin to understand about dharma when we are fortunate to come in contact with teachings of Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam that very nicely explain dharma as being our primary goal as human beings. The param dharma, savai pumsam paro dharma, of all living entities, is to come to that point of engaging in bhakti or devotional service. And this body is like the gifted asset that we have for actually attaining that objective. So actually yesterday, in visiting this monastery, I thought it would be nice, especially for those who went, to share some thoughts of, I guess, insights that we can get, how in those days, of course, this is before the whole advancement or introduction of the printing press. We saw very ancient library there. Actually, we take it for granted in modern day society. We can easily get books. We can easily read so many different topics. But in previous times, actually the only books that were available were books in relation with spirituality. Srila Prabhupada explains how we can just, if we go back even to the time of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, books that were available and dramas that people would perform. Even we saw an interesting photo, Prabhupada speaks about this also. Previously, when dramas were performed, the ladies were not part of the drama. Men would get dressed up as ladies we saw that photo. They had many photos in display. The culture was such that there was a very clearly defined, let's say, a difference. Bhagavatam also explains how Vedic culture gives importance to, we could say, planned, I think the word segregation is appropriate, separating the men from women, because if we look at this purport and so many other purports in the Bhagavatam, the main problem for the majority of people in this world lies in terms of sense gratification, which is especially taking place in the unregulated relationships actually between men and women, because the highest form of sense gratification is actually sex life, and everyone in the material world has that same problem, the root cause being of our identifying with this body. So Vedic culture has some general guidelines. Has some general guidelines whereby certain activities are especially meant to be taken up by women, others are meant to be taken up by men. There's some guidelines are given to help and facilitate one's advancement actually in spiritual life. We have given those up actually in modern day society, and one of the pictures that was shown also quite revealing, because they have a whole in the section where students, they still have actually how many students?
Around 350.
About 350 students are still studying there. So, whereas previously, the old photo was showing those who had graduated, and they were all boys. And the more recent photo is boys and girls. What we call co-education. It's one of many aspects of modern day society which is presenting in many ways a challenge for advancing in spiritual life. Of course, there's always danger of going to extremes, but it's important for us as devotees to understand that there are some basic guidelines that are given in our Vedic culture that favors ultimately the purpose behind such guidelines are to facilitate individuals' advancement in spiritual life. And when such guidelines are abandoned or most of the time unknown, which is the case in modern day society, it makes for a very difficult situation where the primary goal of life is increased activities of sense gratification. We have as a society, this great challenge of how to rectify the ills of modern day society, which are encouraging more and more people in all kinds of illicit, sinful, ultimately sinful activities. How to introduce practices and how to instill values in the lives of individuals without, on the one side, becoming fanatic, and on the other side, by upholding and respecting the general guidelines that are given in the Vedic literatures. And it's a very big challenge for all of us, because modern day society has become rather so promiscuous. Everything is has come to the point of being extreme in terms of all activities are allowed. So this means that taking guidance from our Vedic literatures, those who are sober-minded, Krishna consciousness means actually to become knowledgeable and to become sober-minded, mature in understanding what is more ideal ultimately for our individual spiritual advancement. This section is describing how there is inbuilt situation, specifically in terms of disease and old age, which are meant to guide us, or meant to teach us rather, about the dangers and ultimately the futility of simply engaging in unrestricted activities of sense gratification. And the whole aspect of co-education, for example, which in modern day society is accepted as the norm. We need to think seriously. It's one of the topics we will be discussing a bit more in detail. As a society, we need to think how to re-establish what is meant to be the norm, to avoid unrestricted association between men and women. Of course, some of these practices, for those who are accustomed to all kinds of sense gratification, may seem extreme, but this is part of the responsibility we have as devotees to introduce various practices. I mean, the very practice of celibacy, for example, for most people in the Western countries is seen as not at all as so important and not practical. Mainly because people don't understand, don't even know about what is meant to be the actual goal of life. So in this way, we have many challenges in terms of understanding nicely what is the norm being given and described in our Vedic literatures, and how to introduce and apply those in modern day society. A lot of this will be more easily understood and more easy to introduce if we create more natural situations. Means if we establish communities where the examples can be shown in relation to what is meant to be the Vedic way of life. To a large extent we can do this in our temples, but in addition to that, our challenge is to actually demonstrate that in outside, in the outside world, where people can live, interact, be engaged in activities that will help them meet their various necessities of life, while simultaneously help them to advance in spiritual life. And of course that's a whole topic in itself, which which needs some time to understand, and in order for that to take place, there's a need for devotees to hear especially various instructions that are given on this topic, related to this topic, by especially our founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada. And we have a few of these literatures that we hopefully will be sharing with you in the next few days. I'll read again the text, and if there's any thoughts or comments on this, we can take a few minutes. So we're reading text number 29. This world is a product of fruitive activities. Therefore, you may imperceptibly attack people in general. Helped by my soldiers, you can kill them without opposition. Any thoughts on this? Yes?
Why did you say right in the beginning that the more you use modern gadgets, then we become, it's not advantageous for spiritual advancement?
Can you give that mic? Can you repeat that?
Why did you say right in the beginning when you started that if you use more of these gadgets, modern gadgets, it's not good for spiritual life?
Yes. Most people who are using modern day gadgets are using them for the wrong purpose. And even as devotees, the dangers are there. We also use gadgets, but we use them for the purpose of preaching. But the more we surround ourselves and become dependent on modern day machines, gadgets, etc., it actually takes us away, removes us from what is more natural. Simple example, most people who are using cell phones, which is the majority, more and more studies are coming out indicating how, especially amongst, well, not only amongst children, but especially at that level, because it's very destructive in so many ways, it obstructs them from developing in a more natural way. And even for adults, we are no doubt, modern day technology is enabling a lot of communication, facilitating in many ways communication on one level, but on the other level disconnecting us with people who are just living beside us. And also the more we surround ourselves with machines, we disconnect ourselves with actually with nature, and therefore, especially for those who are misusing, which is the majority of people, which are people who are misusing this modern technology, it becomes more difficult for us, for such individuals, to actually understand about spiritual life. We associate with machines. We take on some of the. We also become machine-like. We are not meant to be machines. Of course, the body is a machine, but we are meant to relate on the level of the heart, on the level of the soul, and modern day civilization is making that very difficult because of our being so much captivated in so many ways by all types of machines. We are living in the age of machines, which is for the most people, for the majority of people, making it difficult for them to understand about spiritual life. The mindset changes our ability to. How does Prabhupada mentions how the finer tissues of human beings becomes changed actually by utilizing too much of machines. We become too mechanical. For example, what is it? The whole of modern education is oriented towards engineering and basically materialistic things. We have greatly abandoned what is called the humanities, the study of philosophy, the study of psychology, the study of humanity, religion, sociology. Most people are caught up in machine type of related education, and therefore it makes it more difficult for people to accept or to understand higher, finer aspects of life. And yes. Mike.
Thank you, Maharaj. You also mentioned in your discourse this thing that Srila Prabhupada says, simple living, high thinking. And in the past few weeks, we had several visiting senior devotees, sannyasis, and somehow they also spoke about this topic. And I heard different perspectives on this, and one question still remained in my mind of how we are a preaching movement, and there is a necessity to ferociously preach. And most individuals, they are residing in the cities now. And there are very few who reside in communities or in farms or villages and suburbs. And of course, although Prabhupada said that this idea is a very significant one, I'm just thinking, is it something we immediately apply, or is it a gradual process? If you could please enlighten us.
Whether it's a gradual process or immediate process?
Yes, this moving to a community life or a farm life.
Definitely our movement is a preaching movement, and it is true that the majority of our devotees are living in cities. At the same time, we should understand, I would say in a broader sense, what this preaching movement is all about. Preaching is not meant to be only in the cities, and preaching is meant to encompass the whole of society. And we need to be very sober in understanding the dangers that are there in this modern day setup, which is basically city-based, which is opposite to what Vedic culture advocates, and which is filled with many flaws. And we should know that actually Srila Prabhupada made many statements indicating that it is not ideal for people in general, including devotees, to be living in cities. We should know that the modern day cities are flawed with many problems, that the whole economy, the whole social system, the whole educational system is leading individuals and society in the wrong direction, and that, you know, Prabhupada had made very clear statements that these modern day cities will not be around all the time. It means that actually those who are living in cities, again including our devotees, it is modern day setup, modern day civilization in the cities is artificial in many ways. So we have this, I would say, dual responsibility to continue, of course, being in the cities for preaching, because more and more people are transmigrating in the cities. At the same time, there's a very clear instruction given by Srila Prabhupada, and it is very clearly explained in our Shastra also that the more ideal and natural environment and living condition for the vast majority of people, and I dare say also for the vast majority of our devotees who are not engaged due to different reasons, who are not engaged in frontline preaching in our cities, to actually be living outside the cities. Modern day civilization, just to quote directly Srila Prabhupada, is a doomed civilization. It is based on unsustainable principles, and therefore we have seen in the past civilizations come and go, and this present day modern civilization. Prabhupada described modern-day civilization as a very dangerous civilization, as a killing civilization, as a civilization that will soon come to an end. And we need to be intelligent enough to take, to understand those instructions from both Srila Prabhupada, other Vaishnavacharyas, and our Shastra. And therefore we have this dual responsibility, to continue being in the cities for giving an opportunity to people in general to know about Krishna consciousness. But part of that preaching, many of our devotees who are in the cities are often less aware that part of that preaching that we should be doing in the cities is to explain to people in general and to explain to our own devotees that actually the ideal place for living is not in the city. So cities are meant to be our preaching basis, but our living basis is actually meant to be in the country. This is important to understand. Srila Prabhupada established these temples in the cities largely. Simultaneously, we know he did start rural communities, such as New Vrindavan, Gitanagari, and many others. And so he wanted that those who are being cultivated in the city, those who can be involved in full-time preaching, especially brahmacharis, then they can be in the cities for that primary purpose. And those who are, especially householders, who are most of the time not able to be full-time devotees, not able to be frontline preachers, and if, as is the case for most householders, they have children to raise, then the best place to do that is actually in the country. We have, I would say, not sufficiently discussed these topics, many of these topics, and therefore there is, we're not understanding some of these principles as we should, and therefore the need for hearing and discussing more on this. So these two things are there. It's not only by being in the cities that we are preaching. Those who will help to actually re-establish our Vedic culture is meant to be especially re-established, rebuilt in the country and villages, because that is what the whole Vedic culture is based on agrarian lifestyle. It's a whole topic, and therefore Srila Prabhupada spoke about the importance of village organization, the importance of simple living and high thinking. We can, of course, live more simply in our cities as well, but when Prabhupada speaks about simple living, especially he's referring to this social arrangement which the Vedic culture teaches us, which Krishna himself teaches by his own example, which is the villages. And definitely for most of us who have not that experience, we may initially, it's natural, we may initially think that, well, this is not very practical. We don't know anything about village life. We don't know anything about growing food, etc. But that, in the present context of modern day society, this lifestyle, this more simplified lifestyle, which is meant to be actually the norm, we often don't realize or don't understand this, there's a norm. Vedic culture is advocating, teaching us a particular way of working, a particular way of living, a particular way of meeting our material necessities of life, a particular economy. There's a more natural, more sustainable economy that's called Vedic economy. And that Vedic economy is clearly explained in our Vedic literatures. It's part of seminars that we give on this. And yeah, more could be said on the topic, but these are a few words. Yeah. Any other? Yes? Mike?
So we have those instructions that we have to reject unfavorable for devotional service and accept favorable. Yes. And in these terms, it seems to be this Vedic culture can be accepted like something favorable, yes, for devotional service. And in these terms, I want to know which anarthas are nourished by neglecting Vedic culture. I mean, maybe it's a big question, yeah, but maybe you will give some seminar at some time, I don't know. But it is interesting for me which anarthas are nourished if we neglect.
Which anarthas are nourished?
Yeah.
Yes. Many.
Yeah, that's why.
Yeah.
Big question actually.
Right.
Maybe sometime.
It will definitely come up, and if you are present, you can just bring up again that question. I think difficult to get into it at the end of the class. Yeah, because it is. It's a major topic, and it just takes some time for us to begin understanding some of the instructions that Srila Prabhupada has given us in this respect, and that was there when Srila Prabhupada was discussing with some of his most senior men. Actually, we can hear about that in some of the conversations when Prabhupada speaks on the whole subject matter of simple living, high thinking, in relation to Varnashram, because simple living is very much connected with the whole concept of Varnashrama Dharma, something that we generally don't discuss, I would say, sufficiently, and therefore a number of things we are not so immediately able to capture. But yeah, later we can discuss. Yeah. Okay, so we can bring this to an end for now. Jai Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki Jai, Sri Prabhupada ki Jai, Hare Krishna.
Swami Bhakti Raghava Swami.
Today you left hours and he asked me to convey his obeisances, apologies, that yes, it's a recent book, and he left a note for you.
Lasciamo con Dio Послезавтра. Пусть собирает. Пусть собирает. Как называется? Белый.
Yes.
You will go as well to the
Most likely.
Едешь на первый? Едешь на первый?
Да.
Да? А во сколько?
Ну, я не знаю.
А во сколько?
Да, он точно 10.
10?
Да, ну я не знаю, может быть, у меня собрание в 10 с дорогашек.
пойду на кухню, сделаю там на кухню, приготовлю хлеб, и я буду готова.
И поедем.
Да. Вы же с вами.
Ну, конечно. Я даже на ферму не поеду.
Я тоже, потому что у меня служение там.
Завтра поедем на ферму. Завтра тоже будет ферма.
Завтра у меня немецкий.
И у меня.
Нет, это у тебя завтра нет немецкого. Сегодня 27 число. У тебя каникулы с 27.
Нет, с 30-го каникулы.
Господи, душевно каждый день.
Я посмотрю точно. У меня есть распечатка. Я точно скажу. Каникулы 2 недели.
Ну, завтра было бы здорово поехать. Там круче ферма завтра. Да. Ничего не хорошо, я не хочу придумать.
Я имею в виду, что...
Тут я всем в конце фразы,